podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello everyone and welcome to Howie the Podcast. It's Gav and you join us for a thrown together last minute Sunday morning podcast because things are kicking off again and Sunderland are giving us more things to talk about. So I thought, why not? Let's have a little chat. Obviously you'll have seen the news. I'm presuming that Romain Mundle's had to have surgery. We thought that's all right then. We're going to bring in another left winger, and the Sassuolo left midfielder Armand Laurienté was inbound, heading over to Portugal to meet the players and have his medical and sign that particular deal off. And as it's emerged this morning, that transfer is not going to happen. So we're going to chat a bit about that. And of course, the fact that Sunderland are playing again tomorrow, which these games are just coming thick and fast. We play Sporting Lisbon in the Algarve on Monday, so we thought we'll have a little bit crack about that too. First up, I've got a man who said last time we potted together that he speaks to me more than his own mum, and it's getting ridiculous, this. I think we're just constantly on podcasts together. It's Andrew Smithson. Hello, mate.
Hello. Good morning, Gav.
Yes, it is. Well, it was a good morning until that news came out.
Well, yeah.
And also with us, we have a special guest. It is James Copley of the Sunderland Echo. Hello, mate.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. You put out the bat signal to see who was about, and you dropped everything to come and join us. So we do appreciate it.
Nothing else better to do on a Sunday, Gav.
That's it. But I was just saying to you, both off air there, I've just been walking the dogs, trying to get some steps in. And I've come back absolutely dripping with sweat because it's just so humid. And it wasn't because of the news that's just emerged that I was getting a bit of a sweat on. But yeah, Sunderland, unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to be signing Armand Laurienté. Nearly got it right, Andrew. I thought I might try and get through a podcast without balls in someone's name. Armand Laurienté. Nobody knows how to say it. So I'm going to use that as my defence. That's not happening now. That news was broke by your colleague at the Sunderland Echo, James Phil Smith. He was the first person I saw that put that news out there to announce to the world that one's off. I don't think at this stage we know too many details about why it's off. You can sort of read around it. I mean, he joined the players in the club in Portugal. We saw that selfie on the plane where he was with his agent and his representatives and stuff. So for all intents and purposes, it looked like it was done, this one. And, you know, I'm imagining we will get more details on what's actually occurred, but it just feels a bit strange. Everything went so smoothly this summer. You know, nothing's gone wrong. Every player we went in for is pretty much, we've got it over the line by the time we've heard about it. So, it's a bit of a sore one, this for me. I know, you know, we've got plenty of time to sign more players, but still, I know we were all expecting this one to be done and dusted.
Yeah, I think it is a bit strange, isn't it? Obviously, when you have those Fabrizio Romano, here we go tweets, and you see him coming over for a medical. He was pictured with his agents as well, wasn't he, flying in a private plane? So it is very strange. I think the one thing you can say for sure is that something's seriously changed, hasn't it? And I think there's probably maybe 3 scenarios that are possible. There might be a fourth that I can't see right now, but I would imagine either something was flagged in his medical, or the selling club changed their demands, or the agents changed their demands. And I think it feels to me, reading between the lines, and I might be wrong, it might come out that they did change the demands, but it feels weird that the agents would travel over with them for a medical and then arrive and suddenly demand more money. It feels to me like the Mundle news might be related on the selling club's behalf. And I've seen Sunderland come in for a little bit of stick online from fans, select few, but I don't really feel like it's Sunderland's fault at this point. I think they've pursued a deal for a player they really liked, but they've shown, to my eye, really, without knowing the full level of detail, that they're not going to be pushed around in the transfer market. And when you compare and contrast to the last time we were in the Premier League, where we were seen as an easy wage, an easy transfer fee, I'm okay with that. I'd be interested to know the full story when it eventually does come out. But ultimately, I think, for me, the decision makers at Sunderland have got enough credit in the bank that if they've seen something with this deal that they don't like, I'm more than happy for them to move on to the next target.
Yeah, I've seen you nodding away there, Andrew. I agree with all of that pretty much. You know, I think my impression of this was, having not really got that many detail. I mean, as I said, Phil put the tweet out, but there's also been tweets subsequently from Keith Downey and Fabrizio Romano, who are basically, you know, being briefed by the club, you would imagine. They get these stories really quickly. and they've said basically the same things. It's off after feeling that we're reaching a full agreement with all parties. Sunderland have made the decision to end discussions. What James just said there is true, I think. Now we are a proper club who are well run, and if somebody tries to pull the wool over our eyes at last minute, we're not going to let them take the piss.
Exactly, and that's a good thing. It's disappointing when you think you've got a player in the bag and the fans are looking forward to seeing him play for us. But yeah, it would appear from the information we're getting and the speed of it all as well, the fact that everything seems very definite. It does suggest to me that the club have come across an issue, whether that be money or, like James said, maybe something in a medical. And we are confident enough nowadays in our processes to say, no, we're not happy. We'll walk away from this and we'll look to see if we can do a deal elsewhere. And that is the right way to go. So rather than see this as a bad thing, maybe we should look at this as a good thing from the club's point of view and congratulate them for having boundaries and knowing when a deal needs to be scrapped. It doesn't have to be a bad thing at this point. And we know with the way the club scouts players that if it's not going to be Laurienté, they'll have other names on a list who could do a similar job. They're not going to be panicking now and scratching their head wondering what to do next.
Yeah, I've said this quite a bit recently, James, about the fact that when we were trying to get a goalkeeper, we were apparently bidding 25 million for him. In this instance, we've had 20 million euro offer accepted around that for this player. So we're allocating a lot of money per position. So I'm not worried. If I see, we're not signing Granit Xhaka, we're not signing Jordi Petrovic, we're not signing Marcin Bulka, we're not signing Armand Laurienté, I'm not worried because it's not because we're penny pinching or, it's not because the money's not there. We're having to wait, like we've had to in the past, wait to sell players to be able to bring more in. It's a different set of concerns, really. It's like, and I don't know about you, I'm sat here now and I see this news and I'm like, oh well, we'll just go and spend 20 million euro on somebody else. It's actually quite a nice luxury position to be in. It's strange. And I think you made a really good point there about the Mundle news, whether that's made a difference. I do wonder whether maybe the club wanted to keep that under wraps until this was done and dusted, just to avoid any issues. I mean, we don't know at this stage, but I think it's a good point to make what you said there, that it could have had some sort of effect. But again, I'm not worried. I don't know about you.
No, I'm not worried. I think that the key thing I would say is that Sunderland have time left in the window. It's not like the West Ham games tomorrow. If this was coming, further along down the transfer window road, you would be a little bit concerned. We've seen Sunderland scrabble around for different deals in January and the summer. Like the Will Grigg one comes to mind after we lost Madger and, we were throwing money at everybody and getting quoted 12 million quid for League One strikers. It's a far cry from that. And I think Sunderland's recruitment generally, as you mentioned, Gav, is developed since then. They'll have a list as long as our arm of players that they can target that they feel that are good value for money, that they've been scouting and watching for a long time, that they've been talking to. I mean, God, what's your transfer tracker up to now, Gav? It must be well over 100 names.
Oh, yeah. I think last time I asked Andy, it was 115. And it'll probably be more than that now. So I've got no idea. We're going crazy. And
I think as well, I'm more relaxed about it in the sense that Sunderland have already signed a left winger. Obviously, the Romain Mundle news is a little bit of a blow. Wilson Isidore could play there if needs be. For me, the big hole in Sunderland's squad at the moment is centre-back. So I'd like to see that addressed. I think it is probably being addressed behind the scenes. So, yeah, given everything that we've mentioned, that you and Andrew have mentioned, and myself as well, I'm fairly relaxed about this. It's not like really, really heartbreaking. By all accounts, he looked a great player. I've watched a few clips, looked at his stats. His record was very good in the Italian second division last season. So potential player with good upside as well, because he was a good age, 26. I think Lebris will be really good because Lebris had worked with him before, hadn't he? And we've seen, when Lebris brings a player in that he likes and that he's worked with before, e.g. Enzo Lefebvre, tends to be spot on, doesn't he? So I think Lebris will be gutted, but from the fan base's point of view, I think there's more out there in the market that we can target easy.
Yeah, there's a story out there at the minute from Gianluca Di Marzio, who's obviously a reputable Italian journalist. And his comment on the story is along the same lines as what we've seen, but he does say, however, the transfer has fallen through due to problems encountered between the parties regarding contractual details on the player's side, which is what we assumed. But yeah, I mean, putting two and two together there, you would expect that they've maybe at last minute asked for more money or something like that. And the club have just went, no. And like we've said, that to me is fine. And you know, you only want to sign players if the deal feels right. Like, so let's just say, you know, again, we're assuming here, let's just say the club have had these conversations with these representatives in Portugal. They've turned around and said, actually, you know, Mundle's going to be out for a while. We want an extra 10 grand a week because he's now more important to you than he was before this news. And let's just say the club have heard that and went, nah, this doesn't feel right anymore. And, you know, it's got to feel right, because what you don't want is to bow to pressure from players or the representatives that where it's taking you out your comfort zone, and then you bring that player in and they're not starting off on the best footing already. You know, we've seen it before with Premier League clubs. What they do is that teams will get promoted, they come into the Premier League and they'll go out and they'll splash the cash on players to try and stay in the league. But it doesn't fit with the club's ethos, or it doesn't fit with the ethos that got you to that point, and it creates bad feeling. And, you know, we might have this several times over the summer, Andrew, where we go in for players and the contract talks don't quite feel right. And I'm almost expecting the club to be pretty strong and firm and go, nah, there's enough players out there that we can get somebody else of his quality for that money, where we don't need to be bringing in baggage and issues.
Exactly. The club have to stick to their guns. That doesn't mean penny pinching. That just means having a value on a deal and sticking to it. Because word soon gets round. It's important that they've put their foot down in this instance, not just because of this deal, but potentially other deals the club might have in the next couple of weeks. We don't know what's happening right now. Laurienté is the one that's being reported on, but for all we know, Sunderland have got other negotiations happening that have been able to be kept under wraps. If you're a player now who's been thinking, oh, I might just push me luck here, I might just ask for a little bit extra from the club, you see this news, you think, I'm going to have to reassess my stance. Sunderland aren't a pushover. Sunderland aren't going to just cough up extra money or better terms just for the sake of it. So it is important that the club is firm. And yeah, you're right. Often when you're promoted, the tendency is to just go mad, throw money left, right and centre. That hasn't worked for other clubs, and I'd be surprised if that's what Sunderland did now, because they seem to be much more considered in how they do things.
Yeah, I'm wondering, James, if we might look at re-emerging talks on maybe some other players that we've been linked with. I mean, Bilal El Khanous is the first one that comes to mind, because last week that was reported that we were interested in him, and correct as if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly certain that there was a clause mentioned for him of around 22 million euros or 22 million pounds. I can't remember. But, you know, I would expect, like Andrew just said, we've got other players who we've been looking at just as much as this guy, who we think fit the bill. And it could well be somebody like that, couldn't it? Like to be honest, when I heard the names that we were being linked with, I did like the sound of El Khanous a bit more than I did Laurienté, just because Laurienté is, yes, he's played top flight in France and a little bit in Serie A, but his best performances have came in the second tier, and he's 26, which is like having a pensioner in your team now at Sunderland. But with El Khanous, he's 21, and he's one of the only players last season who did all right for Leicester, and their fans like him. So I actually, you know, if that's who we're looking at, I'm just bringing him back up. I don't want people to think I know anything here. I don't have any inside info on who's Sunderland are targeting, and possibly by the time this goes out, and you know, a name will emerge. But I just think sometimes it might not be the worst thing in the world too. You know, if we move on from him, we might end up with somebody better. You know, But are you kind of expecting us maybe to look at somebody we've already been talking to, maybe?
I think so, yeah, possibly. I think Andrew is hinted towards a very sort of valid point if Sunderland are happy to call this deal off, they must be confident that they can pursue other deals fairly quickly. They must already be sort of having those conversations. Maybe this is, as you mentioned, Gav, deals they can revisit. I think Sunderland are actually quite good as well at just turning up with a transfer ready to go. You know, the Adingra thing, we didn't really hear anything from the January until it was pretty much all done. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if something's bubbling away under the surface. And I think the decision to walk away is probably driven by a feeling of control over this transfer window. It doesn't feel desperate, does it? They must, having pulled out of that deal, thought, well, actually, we can get better value for money with another conversation, with another target for less money. If it is wages, if it is a signing on fee, if it is agents' fees, they must believe that they can get a similar level of player for less money. And I think the decisiveness in which this has been sort of undertaken by Sunderland's decision makers is sort of cause for celebration, really, because the last thing you want is a transfer saga. It's not good. It's not helpful. We've seen it loads of times over the years with the likes of Kiefer Moore and all of these other players. So again, I'm pretty relaxed about it. I think the recruitment team, you know, Stuart Harvey in there as well, data-led, process-driven. I don't think they will have taken this decision lightly, and I think it signals that they're confident that they've got other irons in the fire, to be honest.
Yeah, just while we're along the theme of transfers, James just mentioned there, Andrew, about central defenders, and just kind of reflecting on the game yesterday. That to me is kind of aside from the Laurienté stuff. That to me it's not a massive concern, but when you saw the team in the second half that went out, and it was Zach Johnson and Lavery, who are decent young players, but they're not Premier League centre halves. That's our backup options at the minute. I do like. I'm kind of hoping the next thing we hear about is defenders. I'm not getting worried because it's not like the season's right around the corner. But I just think the sooner we get a centre half or two in, I think the squad will look a lot more like it needs to look ahead of that West Ham game.
Yeah, in an ideal world, you're dead right. A couple of central defenders brought in now would be perfect because it gives them that little bit of bedding in time. I appreciate what you're saying in that it doesn't have to be right away, but if you could ask for your perfect scenario, it would be that they land over the next couple of days. It's unfortunate that we have a few injuries in defence already. I think that will impact the thinking with regards to who we do and don't bring in. But just a word James said earlier that kind of keeps me okay with everything is control. You said, James, didn't you, that things are controlled? And that's exactly how I see it. We are not running around like headless chickens. We know what we're doing. There's a plan in place. And yes, it would be great to have a defender in ASAP, but Sunderland aren't going to do a deal that in the long term is wrong for us just for the sake of it. They'll be quite happy and quite comfortable in themselves if things do take another couple of days. As long as that person is right in the long term, the right fit, they'll be happy to go with that. And yeah, whilst if it was me in charge, I'd want everything done tomorrow. But I'm not in charge, and that's just as well because our squad wouldn't look nearly as good as I think it's going to.
Yeah, it's like I say, James, it's not a concern necessarily. It's just when you look about, you kind of you got the impression from watching the game on Saturday night of what the team might look like. So at the start of the season, particularly that first half. I mean, Martin and you talked about this on the pod before, Andrew, about sort of how that looked a lot like what we could probably expect for that West Ham game. You know, you see the midfield shaping up, the attack shaping up, but you know, you look and the glaring issues are defence and goalkeeper, right? I mean, Patterson will be fine. Simon Moore is a capable deputy. I'm not too concerned about goalkeepers, but it's that defence. I just think, you know, I'd be a little bit concerned if we're starting the season with Sealt there, even though he's done okay. He's had a bad injury, you know, so we can't rely too heavily on him and Necker Triantis even. Triantis hasn't come back to be a centre half, but he might have to be in pre-season. So yeah, I don't know if you saw the news about is it Singo at Monaco? Apparently that came out today that he wants to leave Monaco. He was linked to us a few weeks ago. There's the links to the central defender at Lille, whose name's escaped us. We've had a few in recent days, and they're all for big money too. You know, we're not talking, I'm pretty sure the Lille defender, they're looking for 40 million euros, which is why Bournemouth have pulled out the race, apparently.
He plays right back as well, doesn't he? Singo, for Monaco, plays right back as well. Yeah, I think so.
So, you know, but we're being linked with big money moves for defenders. And it goes back to what I said before, doesn't it? You're kind of expecting that it's going to happen at some point. We will get a centre-half. But some of the money, it's eye-watering. I mean, can you see us spending 40 million euros on a defender? Because I think even that's a stretch for us, isn't it?
I'm not sure. I mean, all of the figures quoted in the media, whether at home or abroad, are all 40 million, as you say. And to be honest, you may have to part with that to get a quality centre-back. And I really do think that we're going to need it. I think as well, a brilliant player, Dan Ballard, and I would have no qualms with him starting against West Ham. I think he would be a Premier League player already earlier on in his Sunderland career if it wasn't for the injuries. And I think you have to take that into account with Ballard as well. So while you've got a good starting centre-back there, I think you need another starting centre-back, and then you need cover as well. I think you potentially need 2 or maybe even 3. Just on the Sealed point, though, I think perhaps we're sleeping on him a little bit. I know he hasn't played much Championship football, and I know he's got a questionable injury record. I know he's been out for a long time. I know he's still relatively young, but he's really impressed me, and I think he's got all of the tools to be a top centre-back. It's a bit of a reach to throw him in the Premier League at the moment, but I like his stature. I like the way he's on the ball. I like his physicality. He is versatile as well. He's played fullback for us before, so I wonder if he's going to be sort of an option at the beginning of the season while Sunderland are still getting their injured players back. And I'm interested to see how he develops, actually. As I say, I think he's got a lot of work to do, and I think it's a big reach to think he could be a starting centre-back for Sunderland, but I do think he's got some really, really, really promising attributes. Saying that, there was the Colombian centre-back as well. Was it Jordan Locamu or something like that? The pronunciation.
Yeah, I was guessing on his name too.
God, no idea. Yeah. And even the John's spelt weirdly, so God knows how you pronounce that. But we seem to be in the market for a high-end centre-back, which I think is encouraging. But I think you're right to point out the finances, Gav, whether they can get that right. But, you know, with this deal falling through, they might, you know, reallocate some of those funds over to the centre-back position. And I think, you're right to mention the goalkeeping situation as well. We spoke about it before, Gav, didn't we, the other week? I think Patterson, he needs covering competition. He needs somebody to push him. I like Patterson. I'd back him to improve and get better in the Premier League, but I think he only does that if he's got somebody pushing him really, really, really hard.
Yeah, and just quickly again on Sealt and Huggins, Andrew, I think, you know, if we were still in the Championship, I don't even think we'd be having this conversation. I'd probably be more like, oh, well, you know, Huggins and Sealt are very capable Championship players, providing they stay fit. You know, I'm more than happy for them to be starting the season in the team. But it's expecting players who've been out that long to be able to just jump into Premier League football. I think to be honest, given the way the club have spent already this summer, I don't think they will take that risk. Even though Sealt and Huggins are getting a little bit of a chance at the minute, I don't think the club will take that risk. I think you can already see it, that we've done a lot of business already because the club understand that for us, particularly with the start we've been given, that's a big first month. We've got to try and get some results in that first month. And the best way to do that is to have players in early. And in the past, Sunderland have waited till the last couple of days of the window to do the bulk of the recruitment because we've already had a Championship squad. We could kind of get by what we had. I think this is different, and I think the pressure of the time is from the fixture list we've been given. You look at that fixture list and you go, bloody hell, with the momentum we've got, we could pick some wins up, and that would get us off to a fantastic start. But the only way you do that, I think, is if you recruit properly early. And we will sign players at the back end of the window, but I think we'd be asking a lot of Huggins and Sealt to go into the season, as much as I like the pair of them.
Yeah, I think you're right. We probably will get a couple of players in towards deadline day, but they'll be more kind of like your bonus signings, perhaps loans that have been made available from clubs higher up the chain once they've got their business done. So it might be like a youth player who's got a bit of potential about them. Now is the time to be getting your permanent signings in place. I agree. I think Sealt's a good player. He's got the chance to come good for us. But if you look at his career, I don't think he's played much competitive football at all. Never mind just for Sunderland. I think, was it Eindhoven or I can't now remember which club we signed him from in the Netherlands, but I don't even think he was playing for their first team. I think a lot of his performances were for their B side.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
So it is a big ask for him to have had virtually a full season out and then say, away you go. You've got 5 or 6 games off the belt in the Premier League. So it's not because I don't think he won't come good. And the same goes for Niall Huggins. I think there's a quality player in there, but it's not fair on them to ask them to do a job given the last few months they've had. And yeah, it would also be a bit daft, I would think, to see us spending all this money on the midfield, buying all these players for a lot of money, and then to just think, we'll not bother with defenders. That would be a bit short-sighted.
Yeah.
To me. So something, like you say, Gav, something will happen, and it's just a case of holding our nerve and seeing what transpires.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the news this morning, James, about Granit Xhaka. It was Mike McGrath who tweeted that Sunderland have proposed a 3-year deal to him. Bayer Leverkusen want a quick decision on his future, and the MD of Sport, Simon Rolfe, said it won't be drawn out across the entire transfer window. So they're after a quick resolution to whatever's going on with Granit Xhaka. And there was also a quote from Xhaka himself, which if you give me a second, I'll find. He said, I've had a very good 2 years here. I don't want to comment on all the rumours and this stuff because I am still a player of Leverkusen. Nobody knows what happens in the future, but at the moment, I don't have anything to say. It's not like you stand there going, I am staying and I'm going to be a Leverkusen player for the rest of the season. It's just, he's not been particularly committal there, which is interesting to me. But this one's still up in the air because there's been conflicting stories all over the media about transfer fees, whether Sunderland can meet it, about what he wants to do. There's other clubs interested. I think it's came out in the Italian media this morning that Inter Milan are interested in him. So there are a lot of stories out there about Granit Xhaka, and it still feels too good to be true to me. I don't know what you think. But it does feel as though that it could be too good to be true. It just feels like too big a name. I don't know whether it's be like that inner pessimism as a Sunderland fan that you do have. But I kind of see that and go, I'm not sure if we're going to actually get this one done, but it sounds nice.
I think from everything I've read about it and seen about it in the various reports, it feels like to me it's a case of meeting Leverkusen's fee. I think they're obviously some way apart in their valuation at the moment and what Sunderland have offered. There was obviously reports from Saudi Arabia as well that the same club that signed Martin Bulger had offered money but hadn't met Leverkusen's valuation. Obviously he's an important player, so they're going to require money for him to leave, aren't they? I really like the idea of signing him just because he's captained Arsenal in the Premier League. He feels like a Sunderland type of player, doesn't he? Like Lee Cattermole, but with more quality and international pedigree and a couple of more trophies perhaps as well in his career. Obviously really important under Xabi Alonso when they surprised everybody and won the Bundesliga, which was an amazing achievement. So it does feel too good to be true, but I really like that Sunderland are addressing that experience. We chatted about the last time I was on, Gav, and the lack of Premier League games in that team. I know Edingra's, I think, played maybe 60. So it has been addressed a little bit, but getting some top quality Premier League experience in that midfield, in and around the group would be really, really, really beneficial. I do think it's one to watch. As you say, the noises coming out, particularly from Germany, is that Leverkusen want this sorted soon if it's going to happen, presumably so they can go and reinvest and fill the gap in their squad. So possibly one to watch in the next couple of days, but I think if it doesn't get done soon, then it's probably unlikely, is my good feeling. But I mean, never say never in the transfer window, because how often do you see on deadline day that so-and-so's gone in with one last bid and one last hurrah and it's looking likely? So, this morning's proved, hasn't it? You just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Another story, Andrew, which just came out this morning was from Alan Nixon of The Sun, who has claimed that we are sending Matty Young back to Salford City, who he spent time on loan with last season. And it's an interesting one, this, because, I've had conversations on this pod. I think me and James even talked about this when he was on last time, about the fact that I feel like a Championship or a League One loan would be good for him. And I know he's only 18, but he's got a lot of promise and he's playing for England at youth level. And clearly very highly rated by the football club. And also last season, Salford, I mean, for all intents and purposes, they didn't play him. I know it was a slightly different time, obviously, but they had him. They weren't playing him. Then it sort of came out through the media that we were planning on cutting his loan short because he wasn't getting games. And all of a sudden, he found himself back in the team. And I mean, we don't know everything. It might have been a really good experience for him. I know that the fans in the end of the season were really high on him and giving him loads of praise and thanking him for his efforts and all the rest of it. But what do you think of this one? Like, send him back there?
Yeah, when I first looked at it, I was a bit shocked because I was expecting him to maybe be going somewhere higher up the Football League. But now that I've had a little think about it, there will have been other offers for him. Yeah. So there must be a reason why Salford works best. Now, I don't know who their goalkeeping coach is. I did have a little look. It wasn't a name I recognised. But perhaps the club are happy with him, think that Matty Young's built up a good relationship with him, and their attitude might be, well, it's better for him to pick up where he left off last season than to go to somewhere new and risk him not settling in or not getting on with the coaches. So, yeah, it was a bit of a shock. I mean, I don't even think Salford made the playoffs in the end. But, as I say, in fact, as we say with all of these situations, the club haven't just done this on a whim. There'll be a reason. I think, unfortunately, for Young as well, it's a big ask for a League One team or a Championship team to put a young keeper in and say, you are our number one for the season. Yes, you've got the potential, but all it takes is a couple of mistakes and then suddenly the manager's under pressure. Does the manager want to put his reputation on the line and potentially lose his job for a player that the club don't even own? So I don't think it's anything to do with Young that he hasn't gone elsewhere. I just think that the situation where he is in his career, Salford is the best option. And I wish him all the luck in the world. Because when he did play for them last year, he did really well. I think even Pep Guardiola, ahead of a cup game, he was very complimentary of him.
Yeah.
So if he's getting games there and he's continuing his progress, it doesn't really matter what name it is on the shirt he's wearing. It doesn't matter what the badge says.
Yeah. You're pretty high on him, aren't you, James? You really like Matty Young, like I do. He's a top prospect, but he is 18, and goalkeepers at 18-year-old, it's a good 10 years before they hit their peak, really. So while I would have liked to have seen him go to a higher level, I don't mind this so much. It might only be till, we don't know, might only be till January, and then maybe they reassess. So, I don't mind it so much. It wouldn't have been my preferred choice, but ultimately, as Andrew said there, if he had a good relationship with the club and the coaches and the other goalkeepers, and actually they've turned around and said, last season is what it is, we want to bring him back here and he's going to be our number one and we're going to give him all that responsibility, maybe that does work in his favour, for a team who generally compete at the top end of the league as well. So he's, possibly going to be playing for a team who are going for promotion. It's not the end of the world, I suppose.
No, I think you've both hit the nail on the head. It's interesting to me because the conversations I had at the beginning of the summer were very much, we're looking to loan or find Matty Young a loan in League One. As you've both eloquently put, I think what will change that and what will make Salford an attractive destination in League Two is that they're going to play him. And I think that'll be the familiarity. They've seen how good he is. He was obviously in the team, out the team. He played very well in the Papa John's Trophy, played well in the FA Cup, and then I think he finished the end of the league season. So they'll be keen to have him back. It fits. There's assurances of game time, and it's just sort of one of those comfortable things. And you mentioned, Gav, as well. I think it's really easy to forget with Matty Young is that he is just 18. He's got a lot of seasons, a lot of chance to develop. I rate him very highly. I think he's going to be a very impressive goalkeeper. He's going to certainly have a career in the EFL and possibly in the Premier League beyond that internationally, who knows. But there's no rush with him. And, he's not going to play for Sunderland's first team currently. There's no real point of him being part of the goalkeeping group in the Premier League. He's better off going out and playing. And I think it's symbolic of how highly Sunderland rate him is that he's on the pre-season tour right now. I don't think there's any rush with the deal with Salford. I wouldn't surprise me if that's on the table all summer and it maybe gets sorted a bit later on. maybe he's having a look around. I mean, the fact that he's in Portugal would suggest that that's not close. But you never know. So I think it makes sense on a lot of levels, but I think there's probably a little way to go with the story, I would imagine.
Yeah. Right, then, before we head off, chaps, because we've talked a lot about transfers, I did say we were going to quickly chat about the game on Monday, which is, of course, against Sporting Lisbon in the Algarve, the second of our games over in Portugal, and plenty of Sunderland fans out there that were in fine voice on Saturday night watching the Sevilla game, but playing against another top club, a club who, they're always competing in their own league. I mean, they won the Portuguese league last season. Plentiful supply of players which seem to filter into the Premier League. I mean, we might even have our eye on one or two if we're got our wits about us. But a club, Andrew, who well known, and we've said this repeatedly on the pod over recent days, that the club have lined up some really good tests, I think, and this is another one. Like, I'm really keen to see how we do. We've played them a few times over the years, if I remember rightly as well. I can vaguely remember us playing them maybe when was Keane manager? Yeah, was it Nyron Nosworthy scored a header? Was that against them?
That rings a bell, and I think we were awarded a trophy that was about 5 or 6 foot high. It was an absolutely massive cup we were awarded. Yeah, I think you're right. We have played them a couple of times, and I couldn't agree more. They're a quality side. They're the current champions of their country, so they're going to be a real test. And you mentioned the Sunderland fans. There were some good numbers there. I thought the Sevilla fans as well, they helped contribute to an atmosphere. And to now be playing against a team from Portugal, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a fair few thousand fans there. And that just makes a bit of an atmosphere and makes the game feel a bit more real. You're less likely to just be knocking around and treating it like a practice match if there's a good few thousand in there creating a bit of a noise. So it's an appealing game, and one which I think will have a bit of a test and hopefully come out of it learning a few more lessons.
Yeah, I've just looked it up, by the way, while you were talking, thanks to the StatCat, which is always handy to have open when you're doing these things. We've played them 3 times, once in pre-season, which was that game in 2008, and twice in the European Cup Winners' Cup in 1973, which we lost over 2 legs.
What was the team? Yeah. What was the team, Gavin? 2008.
Oh, I'm not even going to guess. I'm going to open it. Craig Gordon in goal, Phil Bardsley right back, Danny Collins, I think, playing centre half with Nyron Nosworthy. I think Ross Wallace was playing left back. Looking at this, and then we had Carlos Edwards, Dean Whitehead, Dwight York, Andy Reid, Kieran Richardson, Daryl Murphy.
That's full of lovely nostalgia, that leg, isn't it?
Yeah. The bench, we fully changed. Oh no, we didn't fully rotate the team. We made a lot of subs at half time. Martin Fuller played, Russell Anderson, Danny Higginbottom, Graham Kavanagh, Grant Ledbetter, Anthony Stokes, Roy O'Donovan. The pair of them scored, actually. They got 2 of the goals. Anthony Stokes.
Roy O'Donovan, that's a name I'd forgotten about. He was supposed to be the next big thing, wasn't he?
Yes, and Michael Chopra got sent off. He came on 62 and was sent off by the 80th minute. Rade Prika came on, and the only unused sub was Darren Ward. And I'm just quickly looking at the Sporting Lisbon team. I don't recognise too many of them names. Fabio Rockenbach, he played for Borough, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
I think, yeah. That's the only one I recognise. But
Gav, I think this game might get a bit tasty then. If you're saying Chopra's being sent off, there might be a bit of bad blood there. In those European Cup Winner Cup games, I don't think Sunderland were too happy with the way we were knocked out of that competition. I seem to think there was a few little underhand tactics in Portugal all these years ago. So there was me thinking that this is just going to be a nice pre-season test where both teams are just working on fitness and trying to get themselves ready. This could be a bit of a bloodbath for all I know. Now it might be worth tuning in. And I mean, it kicked off against Sevilla a couple of times, so yeah, this might turn out to be a grudge match.
And there's a really funny little story here about one of those Cup Winners' Cup games where Sporting were only able to name 3 subs. And does anybody know why? Does anybody know this one?
Bother with the police?
Yes,
when they were in England.
Three of them got done for pinching audio cassettes from Boots on Northumberland Street in Newcastle, and they were sent home after being convicted and fined £20 each. Imagine that happening now.
Different era, isn't it?
Aye, yeah.
We definitely need a Roker Report podcast on these two games against Sporting, I think.
Well, it's October, so you can talk about that one on this week, Andrew, when that one comes up. But yeah, I mean, the game itself, that's happening on Monday night. I'm just expecting more of the same. James, I don't know about you. Just going to be a bit more like the Sevilla game. Two separate teams. I think Reggie Silbrice has already said that, hasn't he? He said it'll be two different 11s. So it could even be the same two teams. Maybe Patterson will play. I don't know how fit he is because we didn't see him, obviously, in the Sevilla game. But yeah, I mean, it's just another chance, isn't it, for the players to get out there? And I actually, and this is something that Andrew and Martin talked about in the reaction pod, which I agreed with. I thought, considering all them new players, it was bar Diarra and Lafay, obviously, who played at Shields. I thought they looked pretty cohesive as a team. It was like we've already played together quite a bit. So I'm quite excited to see what they can do again in this one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that midfield again of Lafay, Diarra and Siddiqui. I thought they were very good against Sevilla in the first half. Obviously, Sporting a top quality opposition, so keen to see how they do. I thought Talby didn't really get into the game too much. He didn't get fed the ball a lot, so I'm looking forward to seeing how he develops. Obviously, Mayenda missed a couple of chances against Sevilla, didn't he? Obviously, one bobbled up. I think, was it Huggins played it from the left-hand side and it just sat up for him.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing him get a little bit sharper. I think we're all looking for clues during pre-season, aren't we? But it only tends to really come together like maybe it's the game before the season or 2 games before the season. So a couple of things to look out for. Maybe Triantis will play a part at some point. Maybe he's not against Sporting, but I think everyone's waiting to see whether he's deployed at centre-back or centre midfield. Of course, we bought him as a defender, but he went and played a season and a half on loan at Hibs and played midfield. Everyone seems to have him down as a defender when they're doing these squad lists on social media and whatnot, but I'm not convinced he sees himself as that anymore. So I'm very interested to see what happens there. Chris Rigg coming back from injury he sustained in the summer with England, so there's lots to look out for. And as you say, Gav, like proper top quality opposition. So definitely excited for the game. They come thick and fast over pre-season. I feel like we've played loads of pre-season games already this season, and there's loads more to come. I haven't counted them since last summer, but it feels like there's loads more this season.
Yeah, and I mean we've got loads to come still, obviously. So I'm not complaining, Andrew. You're like me, aren't you? You love it, man. It doesn't matter who we're playing. You'll watch it and get into it. I mean, even I watched it in the town yesterday, and when we scored, we all jumped up and cheered like it was an important goal. And it wasn't until about 2 or 3 seconds after I sat back down, I was like, "Is that your friendly? What am I doing?" But I did. I proper jumped up when we scored. You know, you're like me though. I'm guessing you just love it when we're playing. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be a bloody a testimonial friendly for I'm Jim McNabb's bloody testimonial. You would still turn up and cheer the goals, wouldn't you? It's just what it is when you're so enthusiastic about something at the minute.
Oh, I was genuinely disappointed when that last minute goal went in. I was thinking, we're going to hang on for a really good win here, and then they suddenly scored from nothing. And yeah, a bit like you were saying, you were out in the town watching it and celebrating and thinking, hang on, it's only pre-season. I was like that. I was like, kind of like stamping my feet, twisting. And then I was like, it is just July, Andrew. Just, calm yourself down. It's not the end of the world.
I was gutted because I had my full-time graphic ready to go, and then they scored in the last minute.
Oh, of course.
Absolute nightmare.
We'll see what happens. Hopefully it's another just a good show. And I'm not as long as we don't get battered, I'm fine. It's not fun watching us get the worst time, the worst ever thing when you get hammered in a friendly. It's just boring. Because Celtic
was awful. Oh, that was terrible.
Yes, that one comes straight to mind. And obviously the mere mention of the word Celtic this weekend won't lead to many happy voices on Tyneside, but it might on Weir side after they gave them a good tonking, didn't they, on Saturday? But yeah, that's it. If you get battered in a friendly, it's not only is it in a really unimportant crap game, but you get twatted too, and you just come away from it like, oh, and people still get really negative off the back of it. I mean, not to go on about the Mags really too much, but their fans have proper lost their minds because they got beat yesterday. That combined with all the bad news they've had on transfers, has really soured them, and you do have to sit back and go, it is a friendly. It's not going to make that much of a difference to your season.
I saw a couple of Sunderland fans who were like really disappointed by the last minute goal, and I get it, but they were saying like, "Oh, we've thrown all of our hard work away," and I was like, "It's a different team with under 20." Like Harrison Jones was playing fullback for God's sake. Like, give them a little bit of a break.
Yeah, aye. So we'll see. Hopefully, we just see another good performance, another good showing from the lads, and some goals. You know, I wish that's it. And you just want to see some goals scored and some exciting football at least. So we'll see what happens. But we're back with a reaction pod after that one. We've got on Monday the On This Week going out. Andrew, I don't know if you want to give a little plug to that and just talk about what you lads spoke about this week. Maybe give people an idea.
I'd love to, Gav, but I can't remember. There was a lot of correspondence from the previous episode. A lot of people who were listening in got in touch with their memories about Brian Clough, and we
were inundated with emails. I feel like all I've done this week is receive emails about Brian Clough. It's been mental.
Yeah, that's the whole point of it, isn't it? You know, memories and talking about the old stories. You can tell I'm spoiling for time here just while I remember. But no,
Sorry, if you ever get the chance, Craig Bromfield is fantastic to talk to about Cloughie.
Yes, he was mentioned. He was mentioned. I've not read the book, James, but it's meant to be fantastic.
Yeah, and a really, really good guy as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we've actually talked about all these Clough emails I've had. A fella called Marcus Alton, who runs a Brian Clough website and podcast, and I looked them up, and you know they've done hundreds of episodes, and it's all people sharing stories about Cloughie. So I've been having a bit of correspondence with him this week, and people can check that out. I think it's called the Green Jumper podcast. I've actually listened to a few episodes this week. It's really good. It's literally just people coming on top, sharing their stories about Brian Clough, and I've put Marcus in touch with a couple of people I know who got really good Brian Clough stories. But yeah, we've had mad correspondence off the bat of that. Anyways, have I spoiled enough time for you there so you can tell us what else you're talking about?
It suddenly just popped up in my mind there, Gav, funnily enough. We spoke about Eddie Burbanks, who scored for us in the 1937 Cup final. Really important player for us in that era. He passed away on July the 26th, 1983. So we enjoyed kind of just, you know, shining a light on him for a few minutes. That's a decent listen because he's perhaps a name not many people know too many details about. And with it being pre-season, we also looked at a friendly that was held at Roker Park in 1984 when we played Nissan FC. So that was decent. There was, you know, a couple of names from the Sunderland team, and we had a bit of chat about Nissan, the company and their involvement or non-involvement with the club over the years. So, you know, it was a good laugh. And as I always say, Chris and Kelvin are just brilliant lads. It's always nice when we all get together and, you know, go over the old Sunderland history.
Yeah, so if you're a Sunderland history buff, make sure you tune into On This Week, which is out every single Monday. That'll be out tomorrow. We will, like I say, probably have a reaction pod after the Sporting Lisbon game. So make sure you keep an eye for that too. And there's plenty coming up this week. I mean, we're not even just daily at the minute. There's that much going on with Sunderland. We're putting pods out sometimes twice a day. So with the ever moving landscape of Sunderland's transfer business, you know, we're probably going to have another one of these any minute now. So make sure you get subscribed if you're not already subscribed to How We Are the Podcast. That just leaves me to say thank you very much, James. Thanks for jumping on at last minute. Really appreciate it.
Anytime, pleasure.
Yeah, and likewise, Andrew. Thanks, mate. Thanks again.
Much appreciated, and you'll be pleased to know that I now have to go and see me mum. I'm going to have me dinner with her, and she'll.
Is that so, ma? Not your mum, obviously, my own.
Might as well. We've spent that much time together recently, Gav. We might as well get together around the dinner table as well.
I'll start calling your mum, Mama. Why not? Thanks to listeners. Thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure. As I say, be back with another pod tomorrow, so make sure you check that one out. We'll see you later.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.